West Training and Development has been involved in community development work and activity for 20 years there now, which makes me a fair age at this stage. And we're based in Galway, and we work in a wide range of community and voluntary organisations, from Donegal to West Cork, literally from the Inishowen Peninsula to the Beara Peninsula in West Cork. And in a variety of communities, we have the urban communities of Sligo and Galway, Limerick and Cork, very rural isolated, and some projects based in Gaelic areas, first language is Irish obviously, and some of the projects are based on English-speaking islands. So there's quite a range of diversity in that alone in terms of our work. Currently, we are the support agency that supports 54 family resource centres in the Family and Community Resource Centres programme. What I'd like to focus on today, or what I was asked to focus on today, is to talk about the work that we have undertaken with these organisations in tackling social exclusion that is experienced by the LGBT community individuals and communities within their own communities. And I suppose some of it comes very much from when you're in the community and voluntary sector. We get to know each other from various pieces of work we do, or various publications or activities in the community, and we're never far from that circle of support that we create, first of all for ourselves, but also then within the next level of the community, other workers or peer groups, and which is intrinsic to the, I suppose, whole development of our work, is that maintaining and developing those working relationships is really, really important. It's crucial to the development of further pieces of work. But in relation to LGBT issues in general, while an awful lot of really powerful and positive work is happening at national level, such as the State Union decriminalisation, the debate on gay marriage, and the rollout of the Code of Practice that Glenn did in the last year or so, and other work that's going on at national level, that's really, really crucial. But for us, it's how do you connect that to the local, to the individual who lives in a small village in Northern Ireland, or an individual who lives in isolation in an urban community in the West, who haven't found their own voice, or who there's no obvious, like as Bernadine was describing this morning, that if you ask in Dundalk where's the LGBT group, they know where to send them, but there's nowhere in the communities that we work in that you can point people to. It's all dependent on voluntary activity, groups meeting with no resources. So our work has really been working with people who literally come through the door to us and said, I suppose it started really for us with somebody from a Gaelic area coming to us and saying, I need information on LGBT issues because one of my families that I work with needs that, and we didn't know where to go. We're based in Galway, it's a very vibrant urban city, and yet no visible obvious LGBT support structures in place. So our first protocol, of course, was to Glenn, and we thought that's fine. We can make the connection between that project and Glenn, and that would be the end of it. But really, it was only the beginning of it in a lot of ways, because we discovered in our work with the various organisations and community development projects, family resource centres, that there were no resources there, no support structures there for people to access information, to get advice, no signposting to LGBT supports. I mean, I think that to be based in Galway, to live in Galway or Cork, where there are obvious facilities for people to go to, it must be just a real, I suppose, sense of, that people can get information, and we don't have that in the West of Ireland. So out of the connection anyway with Glenn and with Kieran McKinney in particular at the time, we started to do some training and raising awareness workshops in the West, and as a result of that, a number of groups decided that they'd like to become more proactive in making connections with the LGBT community and individuals in their own communities. And so this network was formed, and we did the usual work of, terms of reference, the membership and all the rest of it. And then making sure that we were including volunteers and trying where possible to include people from the LGBT community, because it's not that easy for people to become involved in rural areas in particular. They're very obvious in a lot of ways. And so the network began to meet and developed a good practice, developed a number of posters, some of them which I brought here today. And we went to Bernadine again for, she gave us the template for their poster that they use, and then we translated it into Irish and into Polish, and we put that into various communities and that. So, but all we could do at the time was, it's all very well having the posters, but it said, for information, contact. And what did we have? We had a telephone number that was available for 3 hours a week, and it was in Dublin. That's all the information we were able to give to people. So, it's just so important that we build local resources and we develop local resources. The people don't have to travel, they don't have to come to Dublin for that information. So having a more visible and vocal LGBT community in itself does not necessarily lead to more social inclusion. And for this to happen, we would believe that obviously attitudes have to change in the communities at a wider level. And so we would be quite proactive in our work in terms of making sure that we were offering awareness raising workshops, that we were ensuring that projects were including the LGBT community on their work plans and in their key areas of work. And that is not always an easy task, I suppose, for some projects to take on. It's new, it's something we don't talk about. It's there's no LGBT community in this community. Why would we not put it on our work plan, for example? And rolling out things like the code of practice and doing training with them on that, and just creating the awareness in itself is a good thing. And other pieces of work we would have done would be around, we kind of, I suppose, tag on to the National Pride Week, and even though the Pride parades are held at different times, as you know, but in the West what we did was we asked all of the family resource centres to fly the flag, to put information on their windows, and to just make the LGBT community visible. And it had a mixed response. I mean, initially they were kind of saying, that's very strange for kind of, a small village like ours, but in other areas, like people did come in the door and look for information. And at least people might have marked it and said, well, I can go there again, and know that they would get support and information. But again, it's referring people back to the urban, to Dublin for any support. We've worked with a number of voluntary organisations just in Galway alone, with a mock, for example, which has raised quite a high profile for itself. But it's a voluntary group. It's run by volunteers, people who have work, who have lives, who are studying, and then come along and try and organise. There's no paid workers at all. And at the time we were so pleased when Paul Wall-Jorgensen was appointed to support that work out of the LGBT diversity funding. And it was such a welcome gift to the projects in Galway. I mean, you have the Amach group, you have Pride, you have the Traveller Awareness Group, and you have the Shout Youth Group. So there's a range of organisations there that have no support structures around them. And if they're to become more active and involved in advocacy and find their voices at national level, they definitely need support. I'm not saying it, they're saying it. Obviously we're very, I suppose, upset that the LGBT diversity project is folding. We would have got a lot of support originally from Bernadine and the rest of the group around that, and making sure that Galway was actually on the agenda. Right now the projects in the West have no support. There's nothing there. they're dependent on organisations like ourselves. And lest you think I'm trying to blow our own trumpet, I'm not. What I'm saying is that we're there, we're active on the ground. Our job is predominantly to work with family resource centres, but people see us as a resource for information and support and training and advice on that, and obviously we've never turn anybody away. I mean, just in the last 2 weeks alone, we've had 3 LGBT requests. One from an interagency group in another county who was asking us to do a one-day workshop, awareness raising workshop with them. One from a local LGBT group who was looking for us to help them to fill out an application form for funding. And the other from another LGBT group who literally this guy arrived at my office door yesterday with a plastic bag full of receipts and his accounts and said, can you help us audit this? And can you help us run our AGM? Right? And these are groups who want to comply, who are obliged to comply when it comes to reporting, to accounting and all the rest of it if they're to get funding again. And yet there's no support for them. And so, if we're to talk about working locally, we need to put the support structures in locally to do that. So that's, that would be kind of our experience of working in the community and voluntary sector. Obviously, as a practitioner of community development and having strong beliefs around the practice and principles of community development, where you say you're building the capacity of individuals and groups to do for themselves. That we don't want people dependent on us. We want to be able to work with people to be independent for themselves. So and to find their own voices, obviously, and not speak for anybody. But that needs sustained support. And I think that again, there's no answer to it. It's a bit like Robin and Davin and Ava, when you were speaking earlier, like, who's going to pick up the ball on this and run with it and work with it? And it's certainly an issue for rural areas. So just in terms of closing this, I'd say for us, we would say that in our experience, it was a great team. I have to say, I worked with a great team of people, great social minds, great community development practice, great commitment to their work. And everything that we do with a full heart, and we're very committed to it. But there's only like so many hours in a week. We're all under the same pressure. Funding has been cut. We're all on short-term contracts. It's just an incredibly difficult environment to work in, and it's incredibly stressful. And I think that the whole community and voluntary sector is just being literally torn to shreds by the cuts in funding. Every month now you're hearing of another organisation that's closing. And you think we work so hard to find our voice in the past and to hold on to it. And I just think that what the government are trying to do now, in my experience of our work, is that they're trying to turn us into service deliverers. The whole notion of community development, the practice of it, the development, the capacity building, the engagement in civil society, active citizenship, where is it all gone? It is mind-boggling at this stage. So what we're saying is, if we're to address social exclusion, and especially social exclusion that's experienced by many LGBT people, the programme of change at national level obviously has to continue. That is crucial. That has to continue, and the higher it can go, the better. However, change has to happen at local level as well. You're saying in the local shops, your workplace, your sports, your teams, your churches, essentially in all the places that people live their lives. And for us, the overarching lessons that we have learned through our work is that for real change to be achieved, the LGBT community must be supported and facilitated to organise at local level. And within that, I'll just say that I have to recognise organisations like GLEN, like Age and Opportunity, the Get Vocal programme, like the Community Foundation, for funding creative and innovative pieces of work that really do start to the ball rolling for initiatives. And so if we're saying that the two strands of work need to be connected and promoted in tandem, it is essential for the LGBT organisations that are linked into networks like development organisations, that they're involved in consultancy groups, advisory groups and all the rest of it, and not just as a token. You know, I'm sick of the tokenism that, you know, various marginalised organisations and groups experience in terms of these so-called consultancy groups, you know, that you're ticking a box for somebody and, you know, that your participation has to be meaningful if it's to be of any value. So that's really, you know, our experience is very much be on the ground, trying to build the capacity, working with local organisations and with local groups and individuals to find their own voice, and that will be heard at national level.